Welcome to another episode of Euphoric the podcast. Happy holidays from wherever you're listening into in the world. I am so excited to bring this guest for you. I have known Amy for quite a long time, so to be able to bring her story and her vision and what her life looks like without alcohol and some of the advice she has for moms, especially new moms, I think is going to be such a special episode today. Amy, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm so good. It's so good to see you again. It's been
Yeah.
since our retreat that I've actually seen you, so I'm excited to be here.
That's because you're in the certification. That's where we got to meet in person for the first time, even though we've known each other online for quite a long time. That was such a special experience. So, give my listeners a little update on who you are, what you do, what you bring into this world, and what you're really passionate about.
Yes, so my name is Amy Tanzillo. I'm an international board certified lactation consultant and a Fresh 5X certified coach under Karolina. I help mamas and babies with breastfeeding in the Washington, D.C. area. And as recently, I'm also coaching side hustlers and new business owners how to build a I'm also coaching business owners how to scale a six-figure business. And I'm sorry, Caroline, I think I messed up. I'm going to go one more time. Sorry. I also coach side hustlers and new business owners how to scale a six-figure business and also an alcohol-free coach.
Oh my gosh, so many good juicy questions I can't wait to dive into with you. So it was so interesting when you and I met. I know we started with business coaching, and I have to be honest with you, Amy, you came to me and I was like, this is the first time I'm working with someone who's not in the traditional kind of coaching space and works in a different kind of service. Because, like, I didn't know anything about breastfeeding, but you have made a complete career out of it. How long have you been doing that? And what is the some of the support that you offer to like new moms? What does that even look like? Because I think a lot of us can associate some of the more hospital clinical workers who do that. So what do
Mhm.
your services look like around that?
So Thrive Breastfeeding was born in 2011. So it's been around for quite some time. And I really mainly did it as a side hustle for, gosh, the first decade plus. And it was during the pandemic when I decided to make it my full-time sole source of income, where I just ditched corporate and decided to take this side hustle to full time. And how I service moms, it's a very high level concierge level service where I come in home to you and give you comprehensive, ongoing support for really the first 3 months of motherhood. And I would say a lot of I mean, I don't even know if I'd consider them competitors, but a lot of other lactation consultants in my space will see you once or it's a brick and mortar setup. But I really focus on giving you one-on-one comprehensive support customized to you in the comfort of your own home on an ongoing basis.
Yeah. I know we talked about this in our conversations, but like I think it's just such a period that's so rife with so many emotions, so much also vulnerabilities of like needing so much support at that time and like not being like, your usual self. And to have someone I think that is such a dedicated support. I know that you go much deeper than just lactation. That's like all kinds of emotional needs come up with the moms that you're working with, and to have someone who is just so dedicated to them and like really present, sometimes the only level of support they have, like in that kind of structure of this new mom life. I'm really curious too, like just a wild guess. How many moms do you think you've worked with? Just in general.
Thousands. It's so
Thousands.
hard to put a number on it, but it's been quite some time. So I would say thousands of families for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay, you guys, Amy is like the number one, I'm gonna say on the internet, the number one breastfeeding consultant in the DC area. She's gonna be flying around the
Yeah.
world soon to be delivering services everywhere else too.
Maybe.
But I'm like with being in the presence of that many women who are new moms, you also have three children yourself. Like, what do you
hmm
see as the things that new moms like struggle the most with or are just dealing with emotionally or in their families? Like, what do you see some of those like hiccups and things you support with outside of just the breastfeeding as well?
Yeah, that's a great question, Carolina. I mean, here is a very recent example. This week, I had a mama call in distress. It was a rapid relief package that she wanted, where you just kind of go, flying off to help her. And I walk in, and it's her third baby, so a breastfeeding pro in a sense. She nursed both of her babies until they were 18 months old, and here she was thinking that she had no milk. And the thing that's just kind of not funny to me, but I am really supporting powerhouses. This mom happened to be a top tax attorney. I support pediatricians, people at sea level where you just feel like they're ruling the world, but when it comes down to something that they are just so passionate about, and it could be such uncharted waters, they can come in and really offer the support. But what's interesting about this mom is she felt intimidated by the night nurse that was asking her to give bottles so she could give some sleep. So in addition to helping her with the latch and the positioning, and she had already some damaged tissue already, it was like, come on, girl. You're an attorney. Don't you like argue for a living? Like, tell her kindly but very strongly that you want to nurse the baby in the middle of the night. So some of it is just helping them find their strength where it's kind of funny to me because in so many areas of their life, they're ruling the world and there's these powerhouses in their jobs, but they just need the reminder that when it comes down to what they want for their baby, that they're really the boss, and it's supporting them and giving them that empowerment that's just beyond some of the tactical things that I do, or telling them how much their baby needs to eat or how much they should be gaining. So um, a lot of it brings into a lot what we covered with the coaching. I mean,
Yeah.
it just is kind of funny where it just goes really hand in hand of empowering with some of these beliefs that they have.
Well, yeah, I can imagine too, like that level of deep support, coming into their home, like that level of care and depth, like so much more is going to come up, with it, whether it's the
Yes.
beliefs or the mindset or like intruding families or all those kind of dynamics that can coming up from it. And I'm curious about your own journey as a mom. You have three teenagers as we speak.
Yes.
So is this something that like you did very well and then wanted to like help model, or is this something you kind of had to learn along the way of your own motherhood journey?
I think from a breastfeeding standpoint, I didn't have any issues, right? In terms of like, it was like incredibly painful in the beginning is a very common reason why people reach out to me, or a low milk supply. But I just wasn't educated on some of the fundamental basics of breastfeeding. For example, so everything was going well, right? I thought everything was going smoothly. But for example, I just had a rule in my head that I'll breastfeed the baby until they're 6 months old and give formula. And there was nothing backing that there was no reason to, but I just thought you reached that goal that you set, which in hindsight, if everything's going well and you have milk, like why wouldn't you offer them the superior nutrition beyond just 6 months? Or I went on a sales kickoff, rah-rah, in the beginning of the year where you had to be away from home, and I was away from my baby for a full week. And I just didn't get that you had to not only pump so regularly, but with a very quality pump. So I think the biggest thing that was missing with me on my personal breastfeeding journey was just sheer ignorance. And I think that it's okay if you decide to do something if you're informed of the consequences. That's a very different picture than not knowing and skipping pumpings while I'm in the breakout group of our revenue goals for this big corporate job and not pumping. And those are two very different things. And in hindsight, after doing some lactation training and my prerequisites to the certification, I felt really robbed. And I felt that there was a loss, that if I just knew what I didn't know, that those journeys could have looked very differently. And of course, they're beautiful and perfect and thriving in a way that every mother sees their child, but things could have been done differently with just more education. It all comes down to education.
Like not one size fits all, obviously, and everyone's gonna have like different life stories and different, visions for what they're going. But do you think, I hear these stories a lot of like women returning to the workforce and it's like, pumping in between meetings and just like the chaos that is like governed by someone else's structure, someone else's schedule, someone else's priorities. Do you find like as yourself as a business owner who's a mom and takes care of like the three kids that you have and is providing for the family, do you find that entrepreneurship could be giving more women like room to breathe to kind of be able to dictate how they want motherhood and how they want like their careers to seamlessly come together in a more autonomous, independent way? Do you think that that's like a important thing for you and something I know you said you're working with like the helping side hustlers grow their business to like that next level? Do you see that as like part of the solution?
150%. And I had in the car my 15-year-old and 16-year-old. So obviously not breastfeeding anymore. And that's not anywhere on the realm. However, the girl asked to go see New York City at Christmas time. And here we are on a Friday. I was able to take off, not ask anyone for PTO, not answer to anyone, not have to even put a do not disturb. I'm just checking in to make sure none of my, breastfeeding mamas need me, which I can easily respond to, or my coachees. But yes, it gives you so much more freedom for growing your business and growing your revenue streams in a way that fits with, which is probably the most important thing for um, mothers is to be available for their children for sure. So
Yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way. From a breastfeeding stage to a soccer game on the sideline stage to a room mother stage to taking a child off to college. You call the shots and you can build your business how you want it to fit in your lifestyle. And I think that's the biggest gift of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I feel like when I was growing up, like entrepreneurship was governed by such a like more bro marketing kind of thing. You know, you're wearing your suits and flying to the Silicon Valley, and now I see maybe it's just what is being shown to me and what I'm looking at, but I'm seeing this like resurgence of like moms kind of like reclaiming this space and being like, this is the solution, this is the answer to how to have both, you know, of like being a just as present, you know, mom and then being able to make the rules for yourself and the structures and the systems and being able to like do your passion and stuff like that. So I love that you did that in an area where like, you know, a lot of people don't even think of these possibilities of how many opportunities we have, whether it's, you know, from being a coach or service provider or even, you know, selling some kind of product or something like that. But I think there's just so many more opportunities out there. I know that we're also both super passionate about the alcohol-free lifestyle, obviously. So
Yes.
how did you make the transition from, you know, someone who, you know, used to be drinking into the alcohol-free life? And is that something you kind of stand for too in your business, or do you ever have conversations with women around that as well, especially in motherhood?
Yeah, so the way that I really originally went down the road is I just ditched my corporate job in the pandemic, and January 1 in 2021 I decided to take Thrive Breastfeeding full time. And unlike a planner with a spreadsheet and forecasting, I really did it with barely covering my operating expenses of my home. So kind of knee jerk and spontaneous, but I was ready to get out and ready to make it happen. And I was only 6 weeks into the year of my first year as a full-time business owner. And I just got super curious of what it would be like to try to make this business. And we didn't mention that I'm a single parent of these three kids. So I'm supporting them solely pretty much in one of the most expensive places to live in the United States, probably second to a California, San Francisco, and a New York. But I had to make this work and it had to be go time. So I just got curious of what it would be like to just run on all cylinders just for 30 days, just take a break. And as you know, it's amazing what happens. 30 days goes into 60 days, goes into 90 days, and February will be 4 years that I've been alcohol free. And it has, without a question, just elevated every area of my life, not only the business, not only how I serve my mamas and breastfeeding babies, but as a mom and a partner and in every facet of my life. So of course I'm just couldn't be more grateful for getting a little curious.
Yeah. I love how you frame it too. It's like coming from that angle of like, if I wanted to this year to be like the best year in business, or if I wanted this year to be the year I write the book or the year I leave my day job, like what am I doing tooling around with alcohol? Like why
Yeah.
not give this shot of like really going, like you said, on all cylinders, even at the point when you the brain isn't ready to decide like whether we're committing to this full time or not, that's fine. But like almost a
Mhm.
seasonality type of dedication to like do. And I'm really interested in starting to use that messaging a little bit more as well to just be like, you know what, successful people don't really drink. And like we can even just experiment that with your own life. If you have a really big goal you want to achieve in 2025, why not try it this alcohol free way and see if like it zooms you, quantum leaps you so much faster to that. And obviously it did for you because ever since 2020, it's not like you had to go back to corporate because it didn't work out. Like you made it work and your deeper why was so profound to you with like raising those three kids and being able to do it on your own. And obviously now you have all that full presence and all of the like, no missed mornings or all the like, shit show that alcohol brings. And I know you are surrounding yourself a lot with this, like the moms and the, new moms especially, and maybe new moms aren't going back to drinking so fast because like it's like that like very tender time, but I'm sure like as like the time goes on you see it over and over again, like there's a big mommy juice culture obviously in this country. And I'm curious like if that is something you fell into or you saw as you were kind of raising your kids, and how you were kind of what you're recognizing as a pattern now, as a phenomenon now, and if you think there's more conversation being had about it, or is it still kind of like you said, that in the dark, like without all the facts, we're kind of ignorant, if that makes sense.
Yes, and yes, I did fall into it. I was probably the team captain. I was the one hosting everyone to come over to my house, the moms with the play dates that involved wine. And I think what happens, Carolina, is you're absolutely right. When you have a newborn baby and you're so sleep deprived and you're feeding that baby every 2.5 to 3 hours, that the drinking isn't as prevalent. I mean, and of course you're obsessed with your child at any age, but you're just so enamored and it's around the clock. It's when those babies become toddlers and become irrational and incredibly draining and difficult on so many different levels, and you find your mama tribe. I mean, I can remember going to the gym with my girlfriends that were what I call my mama friends, and we were on that elliptical and treadmill together and working out every problem about those kids. And then we, of course, had our wine after. And it was so bonding and they were so important to me. And the decompression mechanism was always alcohol. So I think it really gets turned on when those little sweet babies can become a little annoying. And I'm saying that with all the love in my heart, but they do. They become hard and they become taxing. And that's when I think the wine comes into play, when the play groups form.
Yeah, yeah. And like what did it take to like recognize that it's not serving those needs? Like it's not actually helping you either, cope that way or even making you
Mhm.
more, frazzled and stuff like that. Do you see that happening with any of your other friends, or is there any kind of like aha moment you had around that as well, other than the whole like I want to work on all cylinders?
Yes, and that is a regret that I have. And of course, you have to think forward, but um, I didn't get that aha or my epiphany until I wanted to build and scale my own business. So I really didn't have the light bulb go off when they were young or had little kids. I mean, if my youngest is 15 and I'm coming up on 4 years, they were 10, 11, 13, which is still fantastic in terms of the impressions that you're showing as they're going into their middle age, middle school, and that kind of peer pressure age. But unfortunately, no, I didn't get the message when they were young. So that is the impact that I want to have. And I'm going to give this credit to you in terms of like what is the bigger why that we really dug into in that certification program. And it's not necessarily just flying around the world and coaching from a beautiful beach abroad, but it's impacting as many mamas as I most possibly can and getting that message to them a lot sooner than I got it.
Yeah. And to your credit, like there wasn't a message back then. Like there was
Right.
either, recovery and or you're a normal drinker. Like there was
Thank you, Carolina.
option.
It's
you
not
know.
my fault.
It wasn't like in our consciousness. And I think that that's so cool that now, knowing what we all know, and obviously like that is the whole point of why we go through what we go through, is so we can share it back with other people. I'm so curious too, like you have all of these mamas you've helped in this tender time, right after they have their babies. And as you bring in more coaching and more of like the emotional, stuff you've probably been doing for a long time informally,
Mhm.
breastfeeding, what are some of the areas you'd love to help coach women through?
So I've had coaching clients since we wrapped up our certification. Just to give those real examples. One mama has and it's so fun because she was my breastfeeding client. So here you're going into round two of working together, and of course I know her and know her well. We had kind of an intimate relationship, right, and helping her through that vulnerable time. But now she has a government job, and it's pretty boring and soul sucking, and she has to work from 8 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night and do the early morning drop off at daycare and the late pickup. And she decided that she wanted to become a doula and do the training to help mamas and be by their side during birth.
Wow.
So, really showing her how it can be done, and not only how it can be done, but done in a industry that's typically looked at as soft and the bleeding heart, and you really can't make a living. It's a really nice little job that you do there, and it's really looked at like a second income. But no, like let's go, and to really get them in that mindset that I just hit a multi six figure revenue goal for 2024. So it doesn't have to be this small thing. Let's play big in a space that is typically looked at for the bleeding heart. My second one, I just adore her. Another Thrive Breastfeeding alum. She's an engineer, has a master's in engineering, big job, and she wants to do a crafting business.
Tell
I
me more
mean,
about that. What does that
is
mean?
that I know. I'm like at first when I'm like, okay, let's like where do I go from this? Like, how do you make money in something like that? And in 8 weeks of us working together, she has a class on the books and her website and her social media presence, and just working through it. That it's going to be very, of course, to hit the revenue goals that she wants to make is like a high end type of crafting series that you can take with her. And I would have thought, not being a crafting girl per se, that it would be like just making something that you put on your door, like a wreath or something. But this girl like makes pocketbooks, gorgeous, like beautiful hand stitched purses that you carry that could be a high ticket class series that you're meeting with her once a week to do. So it's been really fun to take something that seems like this, like I know a lot of your messaging lately, like this cute little passion, and she's gonna crush it. She's gonna crush it with the dreams that she has and the type of experiences that she offers. It's not even just about the end product, but it's the connection that you have with these other crafters, or I say women, but it could be men, right? Like side by side that you're creating. And I told her that the alcohol-free niche is a beautiful market for her because we're not sitting at the bar just sipping on a cocktail. We're kind of doing cool shit, right? So maybe it's making a handbag.
Yeah.
So those are the two most recent business coaching clients. And then I have another client that is super successful from a business standpoint, owns her own company, very renowned and locally in our area, and is just doing very, very well. There's a lot going up there with limiting beliefs and how she's talking to herself and lack of self-love. So I've been able to do a very different type of coaching with her. So it's so awesome.
Ah,
I love
so
it.
it just goes to show too that like even though maybe you and I might not understand something like crafting or whatever,
Yeah.
there is so much, I think, possibility when we put our passions into the forefront of our careers. And I think like it's so easy to be so narrow-minded about what's logical, what's reasonable, like what's going to pay the bills. And that is like a mantra from a different era. Like we really have to see now today, like, yes, there's people teaching ukulele, making millions of dollars. There's people crafting, you know what I mean? There's all kinds of things, and the woman who's teaching the crafting might be teaching other business owners how to craft things that they're going to sell on like Etsy and stuff. Like it's just so much possibility, and I really see women at the forefront of this kind of movement of being like, hey, this whole old 9 to 5 structure where we're making some other rich guy even richer, you know what I mean, these like
Yeah.
more greedy kind of corporations and stuff like that. I'm done with that. It's not going to dictate my life. It's not going to dictate my schedule. I'm going to build my own thing, my own passions. And I hope Amy's story and some of her client stories are just kind of like turning the wheels for any listeners right now who are like, I could make this work. I really could take my passion and make it a paycheck and make it a livelihood and stuff like that. And it takes a lot of faith, of course, and it is a risk, but like, what are we waiting for? What else is life for if we're just going to sit around and always take the safe, boring choices that make us like dead inside? And then we have to drink so
Mhm.
much because there's nothing else that's fulfilling us so much, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that example is amazing. And I know with the alcohol-free lifestyle and, all of the things that you do as a mom and like really helping other moms through, so many stages of their life, whether it's through the breastfeeding or the business or the coaching. What does it look like? I know this is like the holiday kind of episode we have today. What does it look like for you and your family as you kind of celebrate a holiday or special occasions, like without alcohol? Like, have you had to redefine the rituals a little bit, or is there just like a different like feeling that you get around this time of year versus like past years? Like, just give me a little bit of like what this season means to you or what's gonna be going down, now that like that full presence is there and kind of maybe some of the specialness. I always like to think of it as
Yeah.
like it feels like you're a little kid again a little bit, like without the alcohol,
Yes.
you know?
So, in short, we do stuff. I grabbed four teenagers and put them in the car and piled all the things in. It's going to be snowing in New York tomorrow. So, like going through the bins and getting the ski gloves and making sure everybody has a scarf and throwing them in the car and white knuckling it up 95 from Washington, D.C. up to New York because I was not hungover and it didn't seem daunting. And well, maybe a little daunting, just in terms of wrangling all of them, but we do stuff. And I think that is the biggest difference. I come from a long line of professional drinkers. I grew up in a very Italian American Jersey family. There was a shot and beer after work pretty much on a daily basis. The red wine was flowing at all those big parties with the family. So it was just ingrained in so much of my culture and my fiber. But I'm going to tell you, if you have a drink or two, by the third, you usually sit down. Usually sit, right? You sit and you're having this kind of empty, dramatic conversation that you may or may not even remember, but it typically leaves you to be sedentary. And then the repercussion of that in the morning is you're like, oh God, like really? To drive all the way up there or oh, the parking, what am I going to do? And all of that goes away and you are just so much more present and engaged and active with your kids. I do Pilates with my daughter. She's 16 before she even leaves for high school. Like I mean, we were drinking in high school, so I sure as heck wasn't getting up at 5:30 with my mom and going to work out before I was going into high school. We go chop down a Christmas tree, where before I would say that that just sounded like a huge headache. And why wouldn't you just go buy one at the Home Depot? So I would say that it just makes you do more stuff with your children and not to sound really cringy and cheesy, but you're making a heck of a lot more memories than them seeing their mom sitting there with a martini glass, gabbing to another family member and maybe not them.
Mm. Oh my gosh, I mean, I've been like espousing this message for so long, but I just got teary-eyed like hearing you say that. Like the meaning of like what you just said and how important that is and how that is going to be something that is felt for years to come and generations to come. And what a big difference that you have made in your family's life and the legacy of both being a non-drinker and a business owner. I mean, your kids are watching a remarkable woman do some pretty epic things in this world. And like what that's going to do to the world and all the people's lives that you get to touch and share that message, which I think is so special. Thank you so much for bringing it to my audience today, because I think you really unlocked something for some people here today. And how can people learn more about how to work with you, whether it's for the breastfeeding or whether it's through the coaching?
Yes, so right now all of my services are bundled under my main website, which is thrivebreastfeeding.com. My social media handle is at Thrive Breastfeeding, and that's mainly where I hang out. And I did want to just end with saying that you just like really talking about the gift that you give your children is I will say with three teenagers that your children really model your behavior. And I have one at college, and I'm not naive to not know exactly what goes on when he's away. But with a 15 and a 16-year-old under my roof, like they don't drink. And I've never once told them not to drink. I've never once said alcohol is poison or it's terrible for you. Um, but they're watching and they model you. And that's pretty awesome because at their age I was drinking.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can feel like you know that you did what you could, right? Around that.
Yeah.
Even though like it, the world's rife with different, influences and stuff like that. It's like that's the kind of home and that's the kind of conversation they can always have with you too, which I think is so important.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Happy holidays to everyone tuning in today. I hope you have just that beautiful presence that Amy was talking about with your family and your loved ones. And, that's a really great way to even challenge ourselves away from feeling FOMO around the holidays and all the drinking and all that kind of stuff is like, what are we really missing out on? Amy, what did you say? Like empty, dramatic conversations?
Yes. That you may or may not remember.
Yeah, so that is what we're missing out on. And instead, we're building just these meaningful memories with the people we truly, really love and care for. Like, that is the gold right there. And I hope Amy also, inspired you to, if you don't have a business already of your own, to start thinking that there's a lot of creative opportunities out there for you. And sometimes one of the simplest things is taking your own experiences that you've gone through and helping someone else through them. So thank you for bringing that to us today.
You're so welcome. As you say, if you had that little bit of nudge, it's inside you. That's a little Carolina nugget that I repeat often.
So good.